The plan is to review every single Billie Eilish release as it happens. She's one of the most interesting, probably the most interesting figure in pop, who is changing the zeitgeist, changing everything. So I'm just gonna go and review everything. You're gonna hear some thunder in the background. You might hear my dog Toby. He's barking. My wife is over there being his thunder buddy. He still might get out a few barks, but it's exciting. Welcome to Professor Sky's Record Review, the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who thinks that N.D.A. might be the best new song that Billie Eilish has released off of her second album, Happier This Way. I still don't know the name of the title. It's something like that. I'm going to go through the entire song. I'm going to sort of break it into three parts: the song, the lyrics, and the video. Now, the reason that I like this so much musically is that she's going back to, I think, what I like most about her first album, and that is the weirdness. And I don't mean like kind of like a forced weirdness, like wacky and cool. I mean like a really brave avant-garde streak that Finneas and she have together. I think, the first album is so great. I know, okay, the second album. The previous album, her breakout album, was so great because it was such a great mixture of ballads, bangers, and weirdos. And it was always those weird tracks that I was really drawn to because it helped to push pop forward. Part of the joy of this channel, where I've been paying attention to music for the last 2 years, is seeing the ways that pop is getting better by getting weirder, by being more sonically adventurous, and by doing things that you're not quite expecting, doing things that might make you uncomfortable. And this is, through its song, through its lyrics, and through its video, something that is supposed to make you uncomfortable. You're not supposed to sit back and relax. This isn't Lord, that solar power song where you're sitting there and you're clapping your hands. You're supposed to sort of like feel a little bit uneasy. Like, that centipede that's in the back of your shirt right now? That's the way you're supposed to feel. So musically, it starts off with this guitar feedback, and it's great. It actually even reminds me of some like Radiohead feedback, like that kind of like very grating sound. And then, I don't know, I think this is supposed to represent a sound inside of her head. A lot of this music is about the stress and the strain that's inside her head, kind of like France back there. But this sound gets resolved into some very compressed drum machine. And I'm pretty sure this is just a Casio drum machine presetting from the 80s. And pop music has been working on developing and integrating all sorts of 80s sounds here, but this does it well, where it doesn't feel like it's trying to be a throwback. It's just using one of the tools of the 80s, that weird compressed drum machine sound, and using it with this new modern sensibility. The lyrics are garbled almost all the way throughout. I had to read the lyrics to understand them, which I'll get to soon, and the delivery for the verses really is kind of a rap delivery, kind of a hip-hop sensibility delivery. But it doesn't feel like she's trying to be a rapper, and I talk a lot about hip-hop on this channel, and I think people spend way too much time focused on whether or not it's good or bad when people who are not rappers adopt techniques from rap music. It's just a part of artists' arsenal now. The hip-hop aesthetic in all forms is just something which can be used by anyone. It can be. And if it's used well, then none of us should have anything to say about it. So this verse leads really nicely, and it's just the voices in the drum machine until the heart of the song. This weird pre-chorus with the sound that I can't quite place. It sounds like a synthesizer guitar that gets tuned up at the end. It almost sounds like a Chinese instrument maybe, and I think the strength and the power and the menace of the song comes from this weird little moment. It's catchy, but it's not quite the hook. It's the calm right before the chorus, and it reminds you that this is a song, much like many of her songs, that plays with dynamics, but doesn't play with whisper to loud. It's like she plays a lot with like sort of whispering to sort of loud, like never quite that full dynamic range, but really in that kind of middle range that makes you slightly uncomfortable, like the centipede that's now going down the sleeve of your shirt. The chorus itself is very bizarre. I mean, the whole thing has this unworldly feel. I was watching it with my wife before she had to be Toby's Thunder Buddy, and she was like, is the song going to start? And you do get that feeling, like, when does it really kick in? And it doesn't really, because it just goes between those kind of, that kind of like middling dynamics. But this chorus, these lyrics that come through fairly clearly have auto-tune. And I'm sure she's used auto-tune before, but I can't think of when. It's very noticeable auto-tune, and it creates a very bizarre sound underneath. Like a rhythmic change happens, and it even reminds me a little bit of Daft Punk, in particular like their work on the Tron soundtrack. And then it gets kind of dirty. I mean, you listen to the chorus, and Finneas is just doing like 3 or 4 different things in this very short period of time. And then the post-chorus is like continuing on from the chorus. It almost reminds me of something off of Yeezus with how dirty it is and how weird it is. And then the dynamics of the song, it never got too epic, but then it gets really quiet. Really, really quiet. And then in comes the synthesizer line, which is just so Finneas. It's just so Billie Eilish, that sort of woo woo line, which then goes underneath the second verse. A reminder of the kind of dynamics that are happening here, where on the first verse we just had a couple of voices and a drum machine. Now we have a couple of voices, a drum machine, and a woo 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 underneath. Chorus goes again, and then we have the outro, where even more of this strange energy comes in, the clear singing, the least distracted part, but then just what's happening with the drums here at the end, it's that really unsettling feeling. You know, like you moved backwards and you think you might have squished that centipede, but you can't be quite sure, and you think it stopped moving, you know? Like this drum machine kind of keeps like getting louder and a little bit faster. And it's just really, it's not what pop music is supposed to do. You are not supposed to have the end of a pop song not be a repeat of the very catchy chorus. This is like a, whoa, what's going on here? Is she going to go into some other song? Is something else going to happen? And then it's over. Lyrically, I am very excited for the rest of this album. I mean, she's released basically the entire thing already, but still. In conjunction with her movie, which I reviewed last year, a couple months ago, I'll put a link to it up there, she paints a very convincing and terrible portrait of fame. And it's what I said in that video as well. Fame is abuse. It's weird to say that, but that's what becomes clear when people like Billie Eilish are capable of expressing themselves so clearly. It is not healthy, it is not good, it is not desirable, it is just pain. It is something people think that they want, like being a billionaire, but it's something which leaves you empty and scared and isolated, surrounded by people who you can't count on. So, in this context, this first verse is a beautiful example of so many things that Billie Eilish is doing right now. We have the reference to an NDA, which, you know, it's funny, my daughter's been hoping I was going to make this video for the last week, and I never even asked her if she even knows what an NDA is, a non-disclosure agreement. But it's a great usage of this term, which applies to something that is just really, really, really legalistic. And the fact that she's using this term, NDA, and she throws it around because that's part of her life. And this first verse, okay, it starts off with talking about being stalked, and that's terrible. And of course that's terrible. No one wants to have a stalker, right? But it's really this other part where you feel the sincere sadness, where she talks about inviting a pretty boy over to her house, right? And then she made him sign an NDA. Just if you're like most people and you're not famous, imagine if you were so famous that anybody who kissed you could make $1,000 for having kissed you. Anybody who slept with you could make $10,000 by telling their story. And anybody in a relationship with you for any period of time whatsoever could be a millionaire. It is bizarre. Fame really is abuse, and that's what we see here. And what she says, once was good enough because I didn't want him having shit to say, we realize the amazing distance that she feels from people in her life. The idea that she has to buy a secret house, the idea that she has to be alone, and that she has to always distance these people from this. It's followed up by the chorus, which I don't really understand. I don't get it. If you have ideas, please put them in the comments. I do have the smartest comment section on the internet, I like to think. And I don't take credit for it, because you're the ones who leave the good comments. You couldn't save me, but you can't let me go. I can crave you, but you don't need to know. I think the you in this is us, is fame, is her fans. That her fans can't save her, but we can't let her go. She can crave us, but we don't need to know. I think that's what it is. I think that makes sense. I don't think it's addressed to the pretty boy, but I'm not quite sure. The third verse has this odd flex in the beginning where she talks about being in, it's actually sort of a humble brag really, 30 under 30 again, right? She talks about being in the Forbes list of the 30 most influential people under 30. And she's there for another year. I think it's kind of a humble brag because the fact that it's happened twice and she says it in such a blasé way, it means it doesn't actually mean that much to her. Because as she says, she can't go outside. Which would you rather be able to do? You can tell me in the comments. Damn it, subscribe and all that stuff. I always forget to ask people to do that. What would you rather be able to do? Go outside or be super rich and famous? I'm gonna go outside after this. The sun's coming out, it's nice. Toby's probably gonna need a walk, Bo might as well. That's nice. I wouldn't actually trade it for there. And here we are with her expressing the situation. And not in a way that I think is like she doesn't appear to be begging for understanding. She seems somewhat defiant, right? And that's the way I think, through basically everything that we've heard off this album so far, she's not saying, oh, poor me. It's a lot more, oh, how dare you. And it's, oh, how dare you to that creeper who was dating her when she was, whatever, 8 years old. And it's also, how dare you to her fans who don't let her breathe. It's a very sort of defiant despair that she's showing here. A bunch of the lyrics also appear to be referencing other songs on the album, at least according to Genius.com. So maybe this is something of a central point to the upcoming album. I don't know, we'll have to see. So with that sadness in mind, what are we going to have for the video? If you haven't seen the video, I'll put a link to it up there. I mean, you've heard the song, you've heard the video, everyone has. The video has her walking in the road, wearing all black, and when the chorus comes in, all of a sudden cars start driving past her. She's been directing her own videos, and it is very clear that she is very talented at making videos for her own music. I don't know. I can't imagine that she would necessarily be a great director of other musicians' work, but this is a nice view into this idea that maybe artists should be forced to make their own videos. Maybe they'd be doing things that are like this, because the feeling that you get in the song is the feeling that you get in the video. That feeling of that centipede, right? Like you're just a little bit uncomfortable, and the fact you don't really see her up until the very end, and when you do see her, it's sort of blurry, and you see her face and you can't quite read her expression, and the stress that you feel, that she's walking in the middle of a pitch black highway, wearing all black, and all these cars are going around her. But in order to not leave this on a totally sad note, I'm going to tell you what I thought of. And this is my gift to you, Billie Eilish fans who are not over 40 years old like me. I'm going to be reenacting a Saturday Night Live sketch that this video made me think of. So just if you're not interested, feel free to leave the video. That's fine. But there's a sketch with Dan Aykroyd and Jane Curtin, in which Dan Aykroyd played someone named Mr. Mainway. And Mainway made children's toys. Toby doesn't think I should do this impression, but I'm going to do it. He sold children's toys that were really dangerous and really not safe. And so the gag behind Saturday Night Live, behind the sketch, would be that Mainway would be defending his products. The most famous one is Bag of Glass, which is just a bag of glass, right? Or things like that. And so this is one around Halloween. And so I'm going to do both parts. This side will be Jane Curtin playing Joan Face, and this side will be Mr. Mainway, Erwin Mainway. And this is how I feel about this video when I see it. All right, Mr. Mainway, if you don't think that was unsafe, how about this Halloween costume, which you market under the label Invisible Pedestrian? It's an all-black suit, gloves and mask. Now it seems to me, Mr. Mainway, a child wearing this costume at night to go trick-or-treating is in grave danger of being hit by a car. Car? What do you mean car, Miss Face? I mean, a car's a pretty big object, right? I mean, kids are smart today, They know when a car's coming at them to jump out of the way. I mean, most of the kids I know go trick-or-treating at houses, right? You don't see too many kids walking along the expressway, knocking on windshields looking for treats. This is a sidewalk costume. I don't know if that was worth it, but that is what I thought when I saw this video. The entire time, I kept thinking that Billie was going to stop at the end of the video and go, "This is a sidewalk costume." All right, well, I look forward to whatever she comes out with next. Please leave in the comments if you appreciated the Saturday Night Live sketch or not. I'm not doing many videos this summer, so I give a shout out to my Patreons on every video now, at least for the next couple months, a couple weeks. So I do have Patreon, patreon.com/Professor Sky. I take all the money that you give me and I buy music. I buy new music with it, so thanks to all these people who helped me do that. All right, well, until next time, trick or treat. There's the camera.